Good day, YouTubers. Today we're going to use an SqlDataAdapter to populate a data table from an SQL database. So I'm going to step you through the entire process of creating a database in Management Studio, and then creating a connection object with the connection string, connect to it, create a command object, and then use the data adapter to then populate the data table, which we will then display in the DataGridView. So without wasting any more time, let's dive in. I'm in Management Studio. I'm going to create a new database by right-clicking on it. New database. We're going to call this customer DB. And let's go into it and add a customer table to it. We're going to keep this relatively simple. Add new table, ID. I'm going to go to the ID properties and specify identity specification and set the isIdentity to yes. This will allow the ID to be the primary key and auto increment every time we add a new user. I'm going to add a first name field, make it a variable varchar 50, and last name email, and we're just going to have those three fields. We're going to keep it relatively simple. Call the table customers. If you open the customers table, I'm just going to edit the first 200 and populate some data in here. First name John Doe, jdoe@gmail.com. Let's add Jane Doe@gmail.com. So now we have two records on the table. Now I'm going to go into Visual Studio, and I'm going to add a connection to the database, specifying Microsoft SQL Server, and I just need to pull up the server name, and it's not there. /ms SqlDataAdapter. Okay, then customer DB. Okay, now we have added a connection to this database through Visual Studio, and we can see the tables. I'm going to go onto this form here, and as mentioned earlier, I'm going to throw a DataGridView onto the form. And we're just going to automatically populate this with form loads. So right now, if we run this, you'll see it's just an empty form. There's no data in it. I'm going to go to the load event, and this is where the magic is going to happen. So first things first, in order to connect to the database, you've got to create a connection object. And let me just, you can see that it's made sure that we are using system.data, SQL client, and I'll create a connection object. And a connection object requires a connection string, and I'm going to cheat a little here, and because we connected to it to the database through Visual Studio, we can just go and copy the connection string that it generated for us and paste it in there. And I'm going to put an @ symbol so that it ignores the backslashes. So there we have our connection object. Now we need a command object, and the command needs a query. Well, before we do that, I need to add the connection to the command, and then we are going to run a little query, and I'll show you what I'm doing. If I go back to Management Studio and just write, and I click on Design Query Editor, and all I want is to select all from customers. So here's our query. We don't necessarily need customers written in front of it, so we can do it this way. And I'll go and execute this, and you can see it executes and pulls all our customer information. So I'll go back into Visual Studio and paste this text. So now we have our query written. Okay, so that takes care of the connection object, the command object. Now we need a data table, and I'm just going to call it data. Create it. And finally, the SqlDataAdapter. A data adapter requires a command object, so we already built our command with its query and the connection. So now the adapter is satisfied, and we can use the adapter to fill our data table, and we call that data. So now, as it stands, the nice thing about the data adapter is you don't have to open the connection or close it. The data adapter will automatically open and close it after it uses, and if the connection happens to be open already, the adapter will leave it open. So just be aware of that. Now if I put a breakpoint here right on this fill, and we go and rerun this and then step over it, if I hold my mouse cursor over data, we can see that the data has been successfully populated. So now we can use this data object to as a data source for the DataGridView. So let's go. Our DataGridView 1 is the name of the DataGridView, and data source equals data. And that is pretty much all we need to populate the data source. Now you can see as the application runs, the data's in there. If I go to Management Studio and I go and edit these and add another person, John Smith, jsmith@hotmail.com. Got to get some Microsoft in there. You'll see that when we run this, it is populating the data. Thank you for watching.